Hello, Lovelace, and welcome to our wider curriculum lesson for today. This is the one we've been looking forward to because today we get the chance to make our Anglo-Saxon brooch. If you remember, this week we've been looking at some of the artifacts that archaeologists managed to unearth to give us clues, to give us information about what life was like in Anglo-Saxon times. And last lesson, we looked in particular at some of the brooches that were made at the time. Now, it might sound a little bit girly to talk about brooches and things, but in those days, it was an incredibly practical and important part of their outfits. Because as we indicated, the brooch actually held their clothing together. They didn't have Velcro, they didn't have zips, they didn't have a lot of the fasteners that we take for granted these days. So in those days, a cloak, a piece of fabric or a piece of animal skin would be draped around them to keep them warm, and it would be held with a brooch. And the level of ornateness, how fancy, how decorative that brooch is, would be, say, a clue to the status, the importance of that person within the tribe, within the village, within the kingdom. So really, really important part of an Anglo-Saxon's outfit. So there we go. That's just highlighting some of that. In our last session, we found out that the jewellery the Anglo-Saxons wore signified their status within the group. So it was often very ornate, and it was filled with precious stones and precious metals. So these were the ones that we looked at. Remember, we looked at a particular pattern within ours, and it was that quarter pattern. So if we look at each of these in turn, we can see that if we could repeat a quarter of each of these, it would fit perfectly into the other part of the brooch. Okay. And each one broken up into quarters, where each quarter is a match to the previous one. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful pieces of jewellery, but incredibly practical as well. So your task last time, hopefully you've all completed this now, was to design your own brooch using that quarter pattern. Okay, I allowed you to research and magpie ideas from original Anglo-Saxon brooches, or create your own designs, your own ideas. All you had to do was make sure you had that repetition. So whatever pattern appeared in one quarter appeared in the other three. So there was the one I did. And you can see that the pattern that I created in that quarter was repeated in the other three to create a completed pattern. Okay, but today we're going to be making our brooches out of salt dough. So you're going to need some salt and some flour. You'll also need some water as well, but I was hoping all the homes had water, even if they didn't all had salt and flour. So here's the instructions for today. Now, first of all, although I'll explain how to make salt dough in this lesson, within the link, within the lesson description, sorry, not the lesson description, within the weekly notes, there's also a website there as to how to make salt dough. So either of those sources of information. Okay. Now, whatever you do today, whether you choose to do this today or over the weekend, please make sure you protect the surfaces you're working on, protect your own clothes, and be nice. Make sure you tidy up afterwards. Please don't leave this to the adults in your house or your older brother or sister. This is your project. So you take care of all the things that you're going to use, put them away properly, clean them, and tidy up after yourself, please. Okay. The first thing you're going to need is 2 cups of flour and 1 cup of salt. Now, if you're not sure what a cup, a measuring cup looks like, then I've also put the weight there. So it's about 250 grams of flour and about 125 grams of salt. But to be honest, as long as you've got double the flour to salt, then you can be a little bit off with those measurements. They don't need to be too accurate. But once you've got your 2 dry ingredients in a bowl, just give them a little bit of a stir, a little bit of a mix together. Okay, so there's step 1. Flour and salt in a bowl. The next bit is to bit by bit, so just a small amount at a time, you're going to add your water. Now it's about 3/4 of a cup, or in other words, about 250 milliliters of water. And if you just add it bit by bit and stir it with a wooden spoon or something similar, gradually the mixture will start to bind together. Okay. Be careful not to put in too much water too quickly, or it'll become a bit sloppy. But gradually your water will bind together. The water will bind it all together until it looks something like this. Okay. If you find that you've got a very, very dry mixture, and so there's a lot of the mixture that's just not joining in with the rest, it's not linking up, it's not binding, then continue to add a little bit of extra water. Don't make it too wet, don't make it too soggy, but you can always add just a little bit more if you find that your mixture is just too dry and it's not sticking together. Once you've done that, you're going to turn the mixture out onto a flat surface. Okay, so onto a chopping board or onto a work surface, and you're going to knead it. Now, to knead dough means to press down on it, roll it and fold it, constantly putting pressure on it, and so it all binds the dough together. Okay, and you're looking for a really nice smooth dough, all the flour mixed in, all the water's disappeared, and so it's a really smooth dough, nice consistent mixture. And it means it's going to be very, very useful and easy to use as you make your model, as you make your brooch today. Okay. Next thing you need to do is, once you've got your dough, is to roll it out to about 1 centimeter thick. Okay. Now you can roll it out using anything if you've got a rolling pin in the house, that's perfect. That's the correct tool. But it's amazing what you can find around the house that will allow you just to roll out this dough as you need it. Okay. I found a bottle and was able to just roll it out using the side of a bottle, because I cannot find my rolling pin anywhere, so I just used a bottle. But anything you can find just to allow you to roll it out and make a really nice flat surface about 1 centimeter thick. You don't want it to be too thick, because when you come to put it in the oven later, then it'll take too long to cook, and the middle bit stays a little bit soft and airy, and so it becomes quite squidgy. You're far better going a little bit thinner. So about 1 centimeter will allow you to do a nice design, they allow you to cut into it a little bit without cutting all the way through, but also it will cook nicely, and you should have a nice surface to work on later on. So that's why it's about 1 centimeter. The next thing you need to do is mark your circle. Okay. Now you might choose to use the same thing you drew your circle with when you did your design. That's entirely up to you. But you need to mark a circle using some sort of round object and a knife. There's no reason for you to use sharp knives. A butter knife or just a normal table knife is absolutely fine. This is very, very soft dough. Okay, so make sure you stay safe. Don't use anything too sharp. You simply don't need to. Okay, so mark your circle and draw it, and draw it around with a knife or a similar pointed object. You're then going to cut it out. Now, you're going to have quite a little bit of extra dough. That's yours. You can use it as part of the design in a moment, and I'll explain how, or you can create a completely different project of your own. That's absolutely fine. But any dough you've cut away, keep to one side. Don't throw it away. Keep to one side. You might need to use it partly for this design, or you might want to use it for your own projects in the future. You can see on this that we've got quite a rough edge. That's very easy just to pat down. It's like working with clay or plasticine. You can pat down any rough edges and make them nice and smooth again. Okay. Now we get back to what we did last lesson, really, which is basically to draw our design out. So here you can see I have very lightly drawn the cross. So just like our original paper design, I've broken the brooch, the dough, into those 4 sections. So I know exactly where I'm working. And then keeping my design handy so I can copy from it, I've started to sort of scratch in, cut in each of the quarters. Now you can see I've used different tools. I actually used a tiny little screwdriver for my lines, and it was just constantly just tapping into it and just working my way around. Might take a little bit of practice, because if you're too vicious, then it can sort of just rip at the dough a little bit. So you've got to practice. Maybe have a practice on your spare dough to see the best tools for creating different types of line. Now you can see where the jewels are. I've actually used the pen top there. So I just took a top off a felt tip and just pressed that down to get perfect little circles. So be creative using different tools. Remember to clean them afterwards before you give them back. But it's amazing the different shapes that you can create using different things from around the house. So be creative with your tools as well. Okay, but the idea is to be able to recreate the design you did last lesson. Okay, so there's my first quarter done. Okay, so here I've carved into the dough. As you can see, my design was all lined, so I've just carved into it. But you can stick onto this if you want to. If you want your design raised, then you can use some of your spare dough to stick onto this. Just make sure you press it on really firmly, otherwise it'll break off when it goes into the oven. Okay, but you can certainly put raise things on, just as I say, make sure you press them on firmly. But for me, I just carved into the design. Right, so just like your drawing, you work a section at a time. So there's my second section done. And again, it's a mirror image. It's a copy of the first one. There's the third one. And finally, the fourth. Each time, each quarter, the same as the previous one. Okay. Once you've completed your design, and this is when I say you can put raised bits of extra bits of dough on if you wish to, you can raise it up. I've chosen not to, but it's your design. Then you need to bake your brooch. Now for this, please get an adult's help. You're going to place your brooch in the oven at about 180 degrees, and I have underlined for about 20 minutes. It will depend on the size of your brooch, so just keep an eye on it. You're looking for the outside to be hard, to be firm. I won't say crispy, because that's the wrong word. But you need the brooch to be hard, so it's a nice surface to decorate. Okay. Keep an eye on it. Don't leave it in there too long. We don't want smoke alarms going off and for you to have a little black disc because you left it in there all afternoon. Okay, so do keep an eye on it. But as I say, get an adult to help you out with the oven. I don't want any accidents with people burning themselves. And then finally, once cooled, I'd like you to decorate. Now, there's different ways you can decorate salt dough. I've chosen to paint mine, but you could use felt tips. So they can color salt dough quite well. You can stick things on. So you could stick on little fake jewels. Or you could stick on little bits of paper, little bits of colored paper. It all depends on what you've got available. I know some of us have got a whole collection of art materials. Some of us are a little bit more limited. So we need to be creative. Okay. So I am really, really looking forward to seeing your finished brooches. Take a photo, get it up on tapestry. Let's have a look. Let's see who has been the most creative with their choice of materials, their choice of design. And final point before I leave you. Whatever mess you have made in the making of this brooch, please make sure you tidy it up. Okay? I don't want to fall out with mums and dads because you've left a mess after one of our lessons. So please make sure all your tidying up is done. Enjoy your art. Okay. Take care of yourself and take care of those people around you. And I will see you very, very soon.